Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. The monthly report for Squadron 42 was released, so let us check it out. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest patron, Dapper Dodo. Thank you so much for all the support, mate. It is truly appreciated. So Wednesday brought the release of both the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42 monthly reports, highlighting all of the work that was done in the months of November and December. So these are double reports. Today I will be covering the Squadron 42 report specifically, with the Persistent Universe report coming shortly after. But do remember the vast majority, in fact almost the entirety of the work going into Squadron 42 will be applicable and eventually implemented in the Persistent Universe as well. So kicking off with AI content, they completed a significant number of tasks for Chapter 15, including prototyping animations for crowds and combatants, alongside developing several usables and animation sets for depressed characters around the level. The welding engineer received a lot of improvements, with the team making an extensive pass on the animations and progressed with the technical challenges of getting the welding helmet, multi-tool parts and welding effects working together. Also, lots of work was done to get the basic version of an AI character interacting with a variety of usables found in living spaces. The bridge crew behaviour and animations also received further iteration and are now starting to look polished. The team supported AI features with box carrying, which they say resulted in a number of significant visual improvements. Hopefully we'll see them in the PU as soon as possible. And finally, a large amount of production and organisation work was done, which resulted in a comprehensive animation schedule that details all of the known work required for Squadron 42 to be content complete. And as part of this, the team will now implement usables and behaviours into the final game levels earlier in the pipeline. So great to hear that. Some very impressive progress being made there. Again, this is applicable to AI content, not the entirety of the game becoming more complete, just their work. So moving on to AI features, they implemented AI functionality into manned turrets. Similar to other objects that NPCs need to be able to use, the turrets have been set up as usables, which describes the logic and animations required to use them, and just like the player, the animations are synchronized with the turret movement so that the AI grips the turret by its handles while rotating on the spot to aim horizontally and tilts the turret up and down to aim vertically. So it is very nice to hear that the AI have to interact with objects just like the player. It does make the AI feel less superhuman, less artificial, and more constricted in the same ways that players are. The AI features team also worked on implementing a wide range of panic, cower, and surrender behaviours for both unarmed civilians and enemy NPCs that have run out of ammo and weapons. And now, if an unarmed civilian sees an enemy with an unholstered weapon, they will notify characters nearby using wild lines and then panic run to a hidden point of cover, and they will continue to run away from the enemy if their cover is compromised. This obviously will be very applicable to almost anywhere in the PU, space stations, landing zones, settlements, anywhere where there are civilians. If we draw a weapon, many of them will become worried. Anyway, continuing on, any unarmed characters that hear this information will turn and react to the enemy and then panic themselves, and by randomizing the speed at which the NPCs react, the devs can generate a natural looking range of behaviours from a crowd responding. For armed enemies that have run out of ammunition and weapons, they will run to cover, searching for valid ammo or weapons to pick up, and again, if their cover is exposed, they will reevaluate the situation and run to a new position. And if the player aims at an armed or unarmed NPC, they will stay on the spot but turn to face the player and move through a sequence of surrender animations whilst communicating with the player. Now, I'm really enjoying hearing all of this with the AI and how it's progressing in terms of just reactions. And as mentioned before, this will all be applicable to the PU one day. The AI won't suffer all the time with server problems, especially once they separate the replication layer. But having realistic reactions to players for both civilians and combatants will be great for so many scenarios in the burst. In particular, something like bounty hunting, capturing an NPC and seeing them try and look for weapons or surrender. Now, as part of combat, the team worked on the medic AI behavior, which will allow NPCs to find incapacitated peers that need reviving and then use a medpen to get them back into the fight. Now, this is very exciting to hear, as having NPCs eventually able to respond to, say, a medical beacon will be very helpful when players are not willing or they're too far away to come and help you. Particularly great for things like underground facilities, having a security NPC in the underground facility reviving you, although I don't want it to take away from the player. Now, the next stage for this is integrating this behavior with the standard react to presumed dead bodies to generate more complex behaviors. And I do wonder if this will have a medical role, gathering up dead bodies to dispose of them or take them to landing zones, as we don't want dead bodies everywhere affecting our fun with degrading the servers. It's very selfish. Now, it also says that the AI features team started work on a new non-human character, and this involved creating a new core set of animations for this new creature and slotting it into an existing basic framework, and then from there they will be able to rapidly develop the core functionality, which was then passed to the design team for feedback. So my first thought at this non-human character might have been either the Xian, the Banu, the Taveran. However, I would not expect CIG to refer to any of these races as creatures. So chances are this is an actual creature, an animal of some sort, and I really cannot wait to see the work on this, or even on any creature. They've started mentioning working on creatures for a while now, but they have not shown anything. So clearly they're holding on to these creatures to reveal later on. Now, the team also revisited a few areas of work, one of which was working on the Vanduul investigation behavior, and during the cat and mouse gameplay section, the Vanduul will now investigate the floor vents in the room with different animations for different alertness levels. In relation to aiming, new functionalities were added for the accuracy calculation, and this included adding a mercy timer, which gives the player a fighting chance to escape from heavy fire by making the AI inaccurate for a set period when the player's health has reached a certain threshold. There is also a firing time accuracy modifier, which reduces the accuracy over firing periods for a similar purpose as the mercy timer, and then there's a time since scene modifier, which allows the player a bit of a grace period after moving out of cover, during which the attacker's accuracy will be lower. And the accuracy distance calculation was also changed to be curve-based for greater control. So a lot of variation for accuracy, which for the campaign and then later on into the PU as well, will certainly be varied between, I would think, the NPC's level of competence and how good they are anyway. Now, next up we have the AI tech team. They continue to iterate on more complex navigation links to extend the capabilities of NPCs and where they're able to move to, including implementing adapters for airlocks and elevators. So now NPCs will know that in order to traverse through an airlock, they will need to interact with multiple consoles to adjust the pressure and open the door. For elevators, links were created to request a reconnection with the navigation mesh triangles each time the elevator stops at a floor. This will allow the NPCs to transition in and out, and NPCs will now know how to request an elevator to go to a specific floor. Also, new event notifications were added, which is sent by the elevator when it arrives so that the actor will know to get on or off. Now, this work here, allowing NPCs to use transit systems, is extremely important, as this will open up the ability for NPCs to come and go from all locations, meaning a population can move around the verse, and this will open up so many mission types and careers, even things like passenger transport. As we have heard, NPC taxi missions is something that was on the roadmap, taken off. Having NPCs capable of using airlocks, using elevators, using transit systems is a big step to getting a full dynamic population. Now, for the end of the year, the base functionality for NPCs driving ground vehicles was completed, and now NPCs can move to a vehicle, get into the driver's seat, find a path suitable for the size of the vehicle, and drive along it. Again, another very important piece of functionality for NPCs to have them capable of making their way around, this time in ground vehicles, expanding their capability, which will make many interactions with AI so much more interesting and fun. I can just imagine approaching an outpost or a settlement, and you're trying to fight your way in or shoot from a distance. All of a sudden, a group of NPCs in a cyclone comes bezzing towards your location. Now, NPC perception was another major topic that received a lot of work towards the end of the year, with the team implementing a new adapter for action areas to specify lightness and darkness, which will influence NPCs' visual perception. And what this means is that they will have better visual perception in daylight, worse visual perception in nighttime. So we can actually use the day-night cycle of a planet to our advantage and await maybe a sunset to make our approach. Or if we're tackling an outpost, you could kill the power, turn off the lights to the outpost, or the ship, for example, before heading in. The team also created a new extender to propagate engine sounds as stimuli, which will make NPCs aware of vehicles in their proximity. And this was the first step, they say, towards behaviours that react to ground vehicles and spaceships. The devs also fixed AI visual perception through glass, and now NPCs will be able to detect targets behind glass, and also understand that in order to shoot at them, they will need to move to the other side. I wonder if this will specify between, say, ship glass and interior glass, one maybe being breakable and they can shoot through, and then obviously with a window on a ship, that shouldn't really be that penetrable, so we'll see. For locomotion, improvements on the sharp turn assets continued, and how they're triggered for alien characters or at walking speeds, and in relation to this, work began on following tech, which will be used in connection with the buddy AI behaviour, with soft stops, collision avoidance with the players, and speed handling based on the leader's change in speed being improved. So very nice to be able to take an NPC combatant along with you for whatever mission. So moving on to the AI vehicles team, the team worked on significant improvements and features for flight AI, including largely completing their work on several sections involving ships attacking actors on the ground. For the animation team, they worked on Vanduul executions, zero-G player movement, and various animation sets for background life, plus they also added skill level variations to takedowns alongside new weapons. Now for the character art team, concept artists worked on tattoos and armour variations for the Screaming Galsons, and they continued their work on a key campaign character. Hopefully the work being done on tattoos will also be applicable to the PU. Artists also worked on the Galsons' armour, along with the Navy pilot flight suit and a new creature. Is this the same creature that they were referring to earlier on in the report? Who knows? But it is, as I say, still exciting to hear that they are working on creatures now. Finally, for character art, they skinned the main Navy jumpsuit and paired assets for the deck crew, engineers, and gunners. Now, moving on to the environment art team, they approached content complete on several chapter locations, including chapters 7 and 11. Plus, asset kits are currently in progress to help flesh out spacescaping for the flight-based chapters, while Vanduul ship work continues as the team preps to hand them over to be set up. Now for the vehicle feature team, they largely completed a full rework of quantum travel, which is currently being implemented into Squadron 42 for testing. Of course, it will come over to the PU once it's done there, but they say that this continues from the quantum boost feature and significantly improves the overall feature implementation. They also supported the visual effects team in integrating new effects for quantum travel itself. The team worked on a recall feature, which is available to various military ships in the game, and this uses the AI pathfinding tech used in the PU and will allow various Squadron 42 levels to be completed. Very much like the sounds of certain teams completing their work for different chapters, because A, it means Squadron 42 is getting closer to completion, but also B, those teams may even be able to transition over to the PU. Now the team then completed a significant refactor of the aiming system and are currently working with UI to implement new aiming reticles and pips to go alongside it. They say that this will result in huge improvements in aiming accuracy and reliability, and it's currently being tested to improve the combat experience. So this sounds very interesting. I'm happy to hear that things are getting completed and in testing, plus this, alongside all of the work that is going into making combat better, sounds like it will have quite a drastic step in the right direction, or in the new direction. Whether it's right or not, we will have to try it for ourselves, as it's too hard to say when it's just on paper, but hopefully once it's all put together, it is what we need. Now, significant time went into the multifunction displays, or MFDs, the heads-up displays, or HUDs, and vehicle UI reworks, with the team saying, "The base MFD system is making huge strides, and we've partially implemented most of the core MFD screens for ships using the new building block system, which is their UI tech. We're just starting to build the new HUDs, which deeply integrates with the MFD system, with configuration options and MFD casting options." So again, very happy to hear this. It is now beginning to get implemented. Bear in mind, it is Squadron first, it takes a bit of time before it comes to the PU, but this should be a huge quality of life update, not just for better usability of MFDs, but hopefully being able to configure them and have them remain the same from session to session. Not to mention the UI will be getting an update as well. Maybe not straight away, but eventually. Now, for control surfaces, this is very exciting. This work continued on, and the team improved stalling and transitions. For example, when a ship detects that it's about to stall, it can automatically enable thrusters to stop it from falling. And similarly, when a ship has detected that it's going fast enough to sustain control surface flight, it can automatically shut down its maneuvering thrusters and start flying solely with control surfaces. This, they say, makes great improvements with atmospheric flight sections of the campaign. Now this I am very excited to see get to the PU. Atmospheric flight will be so much fun and much more like a simulation, like we see with something like Flight Simulator, but it will also be very varied between all of the ships because it does use aerodynamics. And obviously these are spaceships we're flying, not aircraft that have gone through rigorous testing to get them safe and flyable in atmosphere on Earth. But it is going to be so much fun just seeing what ships are very aerodynamic and what you can just soar with, turning off your engines and everything and just using the wind, compared to something like a Prospector or a Mole. And hopefully now that it's getting into the Squadron 42 campaign, it won't be too much longer till it gets into the PU. Now, on to the gameplay story team. They worked on a range of tasks, including prepping and shooting mocap to update various scenes. Motion capture from previous shoots was also used, for example, to help characters climb back into ships after speaking with the player. A scene in Chapter 8 was updated to ensure the character could interact with a variety of props instead of just performing visual inspections, with the team making sure that the character used AI poses to allow them to break out of a scene if needed. And the character also interacts well with the Argo MPUV, meaning they can fly into the Idris before starting the scene. Now, I suspect that this scene is the part of the game which we got to see with the Morrow tour, where the player was first brought onto the Stanton, being the Idris, the name of the Idris, and introduced to Morrow, the chief engineer, who gave him a tour of the Idris as you tried to get settled in. Now, another area further explored was unholstering and holstering. This time the team were able to make a character grab a multi-tool and a datapad to the exact position it attaches to on the character and then place it back. I suppose that's more of a visual improvement so that they're not just having items appear in their hand and sort of clip back. A number of updates was also made to characters in Chapter 4 and 8, which involved utilising the latest female walk cycle to enable the AI to seamlessly enter and exit scenes. A major review of scenes that had been worked on throughout the past year was done, and this led to an increased animation quality either by using the latest motion capture or fixing what was already in place. Many new animations were created, and polish passes were done on animations to further improve scenes alongside general maintenance and bug fixing. So for the graphics and visual effects programming team, they began implementing the new quantum travel and boost effects. These effects are now in a basic functional state and are triggering at generally the correct time, they say, but work will continue to expose timing controls and implement the functionality for adapting the effects to any size ship. Also, work on the fire hazard system is ramping up again, starting with implementing requests for controlling fire and its propagation for design purposes. And then on the visual side, the team are currently planning out the work required for reaching the visual goal set by the visual effects art team. Cannot wait to see this come along. Very happy to hear that they are now back working on the fire hazard system. I didn't even realise they'd stopped working on it. But this hopefully will come alongside the resource network, which is the component system, which will have fires starting in ships and environments, realistically, that need to be put out. That is going to be some hella fun gameplay. Now, moving on to the level design team, they progressed well with the scene work on their assigned chapters. New onboarding documentation was also created to better support new starters. For the narrative team, they were busy with a week-long performance capture shoot in the UK, hopefully in their new offices, and this was to close out capturing wildlines for one of the enemy factions, as well as narrative content scenes for a set piece. They also picked up content to support the new dynamic conversation system that will provide exciting opportunities, it says, for NPCs to chat with each other. And this opens up a lot of opportunities for contextual conversations that can help maintain the illusion of life and storytelling outside of the dedicated scripted scenes. I'd be quite interested to see how this whole dynamic conversation system works and just see if it is realistic, because obviously in a lot of games when you have NPCs talking to one another, it can seem very robotic. So yeah, interested to see how this will differ. And finally, for the narrative team, they met with character teams to ensure that all the necessary costumes have been requested to support the various chapters that specific NPCs appear in. Now, for the tech animation team, they spent time focusing on head asset processing, with the team saying, "We've been taking some long overdue actors and starting the internal processing procedure to create their likenesses. This includes creating over 78 scans per head asset and processing them to the neutral head asset. Some of these actors were scanned over 7 years ago on the main shoot for Squadron 42, so they look quite different these days. And thinking about it, it's been about 5 or 6 years since my head was scanned, so I wonder if I'm included in this, or if they're actually specifically talking about professional actors." The team took these complex scans and broke them down into individual muscle movements and applied them to the facial rig assets, with the team ultimately including them into the gene pool to give more variety to the heads and faces seen in game. And finally, we have the visual effects team, who progressed with the particle library overhaul. This included creating a custom level showing all of the available effects, which is useful for other visual effects artists to quickly view the effects library. The team's artists also continued to support the art and design teams on key locations and cinematic scenes, and elsewhere, working alongside the visual effects programmers, the new quantum travel effects were made functional, and having seen these effects working properly, there is still some tweaking to be done to better match the prototype. Whew, so there you have it. That is the Squadron 42 monthly report, covering both the November and December work as they have combined them together. Some great progress getting done and lots coming to a state of completion. Not that there's not a ton of work left to be done, but hearing things getting to a final state is of course great news. Now, I will be getting to work on the Persistent Universe monthly report as well, so do keep your eyes peeled for that one. Lots of juicy progress for the PU. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there. Hit that thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.